Hello, this is Anna Flowers, aka Ms. Flowers Stitches, and I'm going to be demonstrating the simultaneous raglan increases and short rows that I use on my Emmy sweater. So I've done a few short rows just to get me started here, but this is the same process that you'll follow for each of the short rows. So we're going to be starting at center back here, and this is the center front. I've gone ahead and just marked all of my short rows, the placement of my turns, just because that helps me. And you can do that if that helps you, or you don't have to do that. I like to mark more things than I think most knitters like to mark. All right, so like I mentioned, we're going to be starting at the center back here, which I've marked with a stitch marker. And we're just going to go ahead and knit to one stitch before the first raglan marker we come to. Okay, so we are now one stitch before our first raglan, and we're going to make one right knitwise. So we're going to start back to front, and then we're going to knit through the front loop, which is a little bit tight. And then we're just going to knit the next stitch, pass our stitch marker, and knit the stitch after that. And then we're going to do the opposite. We're going to make one left, so that goes front to back, and then we knit through the back loop, which you can do by coming in back this way. I actually find it easier to do this sort of little spinny motion. And I'll show you that one more time on the next one. But then I'm just going to knit two once more, one stitch before the raglan marker. So that was the raglan on my back right shoulder, and this is going to be the raglan on my front right shoulder. All right, one stitch before, we're going to go ahead and make one right, which is back to front. And this is tight, and I'm a little bit of a tight knitter. And then knit one, got real life knitting going on here. Knit one, slip marker, knit one, and then once again, make one left is front to back, and you want to get knitted through that back loop, which I like to do by spinning this stitch around. That is easier for me. Okay, so now that we're on our front, we're gonna knit to our previous distorted stitch, and we're going to knit that distorted stitch together as one stitch. Okay, so here's a distorted stitch. If you can see that, it kind of looks like two stitches. So I'm just going to knit that together as one stitch. All this stitch marker is doing is showing me that that's where my distorted stitch is. So I'm going to pop that off. I don't need that anymore. And then I'm going to knit three more. 1, 2, 3, and like I said, I like to use stitch markers for this to show me where I'm getting to, and I'm going to leave that one on because this is where my distorted stitch is going to be the next time I come back around. Okay, so I'm flipping to the other side of my work, and for the distorted stitch, I'm just going to, with my yarn held in front, I'm going to pass this stitch over, and then I'm going to bring my yarn back around, and then I'll purl back the other way. So now I have a distorted stitch here. This is my distorted stitch. And I will resolve that on the next row, but I'm just going to purl back to my other side. And from this side, since I just increased, I'm not going to increase my raglans on this side. We're only increasing every other. So on the purl side, I will not increase my right side raglan. I will increase my left side raglan. And now I'm going to purl across my back, straight purling. And when I come to one stitch before my left side raglan marker, then I'm going to increase on the purl side on the left. Okay, so I've now come to one stitch before, move my thumb out of the way, one stitch before the raglan marker on my left side. So we're going to go ahead and increase on this side as well. And we're basically going to do this the opposite way that we did on the right hand side. So on the right side, on the knit side, we went make one right first and then make one left second. And in this case, we're going to do make one left. So that's front to back and then purl the back loop, which is a little tricky and tight. Purl one and then purl one, slip stitch marker, purl one, and then make one right purl, which is back to front, and then purl the front loop. Purl the front loop, and then we'll do that one more time on our second raglan on the right side. Okay, so one before, so once again, we're gonna go front to back, pick up that stitch, and then purl through the back loop. Slip that marker, purl one, and then back to front, purl through the front loop. Okay, and so now, like we did on the right side, we're going to purl to our distorted stitch, which I've once again marked with a stitch marker in a contrasting color. And then we're going to resolve that distorted stitch by knitting it together as one, which is what it is. It's not two stitches, it's just one stitch, it's just distorted. That's our last regular stitch, and here's our distorted stitch. You can see that it's together on this side. So we're just gonna stitch that, purl that, oops, it got caught up in there, purl that as one, and I'm gonna drop off my stitch marker because I don't need it anymore. And then I'm gonna purl 3 more before turning and doing my distorted stitch on this side. Okay, to purl 3 more, I'm gonna leave that stitch marker there. And then same as on the other side, we're gonna pull our yarn to the front. Well, on the other side, it was already in the front. This time we're gonna pull our yarn to the front, and we're gonna slip the stitch to the right needle, and then we're going to bring our yarn over to the back and continue knitting back normally. And so that is our regular stitch and our distorted stitch, which again is sort of connected on the top. And then we're just gonna knit back. And once again, because we just increased, we're not gonna increase on the knit back on the left side. We're only gonna increase one side at a time. So when you're on the purl side, you're only gonna increase the left raglan. And when you're on a knit side, you're only going to increase the right raglan. So basically the pattern goes, when you distort your stitch, then you either knit or purl straight back to the center back. And then when you're knitting away from that center back, out towards your next distorted stitch, that's when you do your increases.